Another thing I find very disturbing is the reports coming up from the Economic Commission for Africa.
Okay.
Now, interestingly, Africa had this African Continental Free Trade Area.
Okay.
And this kicked up January 1st, 2024. This is 2021, sorry, 2021. And the whole idea of this is for Africa as a continent. First of all, what this report is saying is that the volume of trade between African nations, we are a continent,
yes,
amounts for about 3%.
Okay.
Amount for 3%. We are not even saying 30%. 30% is shocking. 30% is alarming. 30% is unacceptable. 30% is destructive. 30% is counterproductive. You can go on and on and use
yes.
word. But they are saying is 3%. So 3% is at the level that leaves one speechless. I mean, we've always known. We've always known that the volume of trade is low. But honestly, I never knew it was as low as 3%.
So we do more business with countries outside the continent
outside of the continent
than amongst.
Yes. So putting this in perspective, it is easier to import this cup from America than it is to import this cup from Malawi. It is easier to import a camera or a microphone from China, the UK, than it is to import same from Kenya. Now, if this does not rattle the mind of anybody, I don't know what else should rattle the mind of anybody. Now, what this simply says is that we have no visionary leaders, we have no sincere leaders, and we have no population who are, this is a function first of education. The big elephant in the room, what we must dismantle right now, what we must work on right now is education. An education that lets our children know, because if it is for this is not going to happen in this generation, except there is a mass revolution in Africa that takes out, like the Arab Spring.
Okay.
Like the Arab Spring that took out leaders. But not a revolution that was unorganized and unintelligent, full of emotion like the Arab Spring. Because even though it succeeded, because when people want to say what should happen in Africa, they point to the Arab Spring. But the Arab Spring only speaks to one story. And it speaks to the power of the people when they rise up.
Yes.
You know, and like Chuna Achebe said in The Trouble with Nigeria, he said, when they rise up, God moves with them. Because if God did not love the people, the masses, he wouldn't have made more of them. So, you know, Chuna Achebe argued that God created more of the masses. And God created more of the masses because God actually loves the masses. So the Arab Spring achieved, you know, changing leaders, but the very institutions of oppression, of bad governance, of unaccountability, of oppression, of suppression, and all of those things, they still remain in the Arab world. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about one that is education-led. We are enlightened people in the continent. You know, enlightened people, educated people in the continent, patriotic people in the continent, Afrocentric people in the continent begin to speak to each other and say, wait a minute, what are we doing? Whether those in business begin to speak to each other. How do we make this happen? How do we allow these guys continue to happen? Look, this is neocolonialism. And neocolonialism is worse than colonialism. Why? Because during the colonial times, you could see who the enemy was. You could see who the problem was. You could see who the victim was. And so because the enemy had a face, the enemy, and that is how accountability works. Because you see my face, then I am bound by both law and conscience and all of that. And because I also want to create a public opinion that, no, this is not really, at least I'm doing something for these guys. ensure that a lot of things are done, like how they give us schools, how they give us hospitals, and that. So you can say, okay, we are actually here doing good. But the problem with neocolonialism is that the people who you see doing all of those things are yours. So you don't see the hand of the white man anymore. You don't see the face of the white man.
Yeah.
You know, but they never could have had it this good. That Africa is trading just 3% amongst herself. They never could have had it this good. Do you think Britain would have had it as good as they're having it now? That we export our crude and import refined. Look, Britain wouldn't have attempted to do that if they were here.
Okay.
What they would have done was to have the Mobiles of this world, the BP, you know, to have all of these multinationals own refineries, refine here and sell here, and then take, you know, proceeds to the UK in cash. You know, and then what they would have, that is what they would have been doing. But they wouldn't have dared to export our crude and import. But this is happening when our sons and daughters are heading it over us. Look, Britain and all of these guys wouldn't have had it this good in 2024 if they were still here. That we are trading just 3%. And so I think what we need to focus on right now, is visionary leaders. Africans need to wake up. Because the cost of this is just what it shows you. These guys, what they continue to do is meet our vision. First, they decide who wins.
Okay.
They have an overbearing influence. But that can be checked if, you know, this group of Africans I'm talking about rise up and begin to speak to themselves. Right now, that is not happening. Right? That is on the one part. Another thing that is also happening is that they have intelligently made our leaders hooked on foreign aid. And so when China wants to do all this thing, they come here and they say, the president is in Qatar signing agreements. And that is exactly how it happens. And so you are going to take off this impediment, you are going to take off this impediment, and so they call it free trade. So like it's going to benefit us. But we know our industries are not working. Our children are unemployed. We have not yet built institutions that are going to furnish our children, you know, equip our children with the kind of skill set needed in 2024 to run all this kind of companies. So what continues to happen is that our borders are open. We make it easy for American goods to come in here. We make it easy for Chinese goods to come in here. We make it easy for UK goods to come in here. And we make it easy for Canada, all of these countries. But then, amongst ourselves, Nigeria and Kenya, that you can fly by road. Nigeria and Ghana, that's, you know, you just cross the border. Nigeria and Cameroon, right? We have ignorantly, we have leaders who do not care about all of this. Why? Because Ghana is not going to come here giving our leaders foreign loans that ends in their pockets. Cameroon is not going to come here and then give, you know, our senators money that is going to end in their pockets. Now, these are the things we really need to deal with. If we do not deal with that, just like this report is showing, it doesn't matter how many trade agreements we sign amongst each other. It is a mindset thing. It is an awareness thing. So it is the heart, it is the head, it is the brain. Until we deal with this, we are just wasting our time. So this is shocking enough. One way to really understand what is going on is the Holy Bible.
Okay.
I don't know how the Quran puts it, but I know how the Bible puts it. Where a man's riches are, that is where his heart is.
Correct.
Now, we have a group of leaders whose business, their children, their family, their investments, you know, their looted wealth are just in one place. America, Europe. America, Europe. And so he makes those calls you're talking about. Okay. So you noticed it because you make some calls to neighboring countries. You're in an African country and you try to connect that. So you will notice it because you produce items and it is easier for you to go sell it in Cameroon, sell it in Ghana, sell it in Benin. You do business and on a small scale, you've not looted Nigeria's resources, and so whatever business, whatever you want to import is Cotonou and all of that. So you feel this. These guys don't have anything to do in Africa. So you feel this because maybe once in a while you need to talk about hospital bills of somebody who is outside of in the continent.
Yes.
All right. Okay. You think about that, and so you find these bottlenecks. These men and women, they do not have those bottlenecks, and so they have cleared bottlenecks.
Okay.
They have cleared these bottlenecks between where they steal resources from and where their life.
Yes, yes.
So they are just replacing, and that's why I talked about neo-colonialism. These guys have just replaced the colonial masters. The colonial masters, this is not his home.
Yes.
This is not his home. This is where he makes Africa, is where he, steal resources from.
Yes, it's workplace.
Yes, his workplace.
His farm.
Yes, this is his farm.
Yeah.
Europe is where he lives. Same thing has happened to this. The only difference is that these ones now who lead us are more oppressive than the colonial masters.
Yes.
That is the only difference. So and that is why I said the solution is to have intelligence. It's something that has to do with education. Education does not necessarily, of course, you know that.
Yes.
Education does not necessarily mean classroom teaching.
Yes.
But it includes classroom teaching. So we need a new kind of education that wakes us up and says, look, unemployment in Africa, insecurity in Africa, hunger, poverty in Africa, the reason why when you are having any United Nations or whatever on poverty, it is an African child, not an European child.
Yes.
They say, let us kick polio, it is an African child. They say, it is an African child.
Yes.
They say there is hunger, it is an African child.
Yes.
They say there is disease, it is an African child. What's up? It is an African face.
That's right. Yes.
The reason why is all of these things we've discussed. Until we have that kind of education that teaches Africans that we are Africans and that some people came in the past and did what they did to us, it won't happen. It's not the way they teach it in schools. You need that education in a way that when we really truly say, like Bob Marley said, Africa arise.
Yes.
Black man arise.
Yes.
Until that happens, we'll keep having all of this kind of
Yeah.
news.
Well, Joe, man, because